In the heart of Africa, nestled between gentle hills and a winding river, lay a village, a place of harmony, laughter, and age-old traditions. The villagers lived in close-knit unity, guided by the wisdom of elders and the benevolence of the king. Every morning, the golden light of the sun would awaken the community, and the sound of drums and cheerful chatter would fill the air. The people believed that their peaceful life was a blessing from the ancestors, and they honoured each day with prayer and celebration. The king, a man of kind eyes and a compassionate heart, ruled with fairness and justice. He cared for every villager like his own family, and was known to walk among them, listening to their hopes and worries. Under his rule, the village flourished, crops grew abundantly, animals thrived, and the laughter of children echoed in every corner. The villagers often gathered in the central courtyard, sharing stories and wisdom passed down through generations. As the seasons shifted, the king started to feel a nagging unease in his heart that he couldn't shake off. Everything seemed fine in the village, but he had this gut feeling that the harmony between nature and spirit was on shaky ground. He often found himself by the river at twilight, lost in thought about life's mysteries and the subtle signs around him. Little did he realise that this tranquil life was about to be shaken up by a vision that would turn his world upside down. One fateful night, the king was visited by a dream that would forever change the destiny of village. In his sleep, he found himself wandering through a twisted reflection of his beloved home. The vibrant fields and clear rivers were replaced by barren lands and murky waters. He saw the people of his village, normally so joyful and content, now weighed down by suffering and despair. Men and women struggled with heavy hearts, their faces etched with lines of anger and pain, and even the laughter of children had vanished into the night. In his dream, the animals that were once a part of everyday life began to act oddly. Goats and chickens, symbols of plenty, left the village without a second thought. In the river, fish darted away as if escaping an unseen threat, while a strange presence emerged from the depths, a mysterious mermaid with eyes that sparkled with both charm and danger. At the forest's edge, where villagers used to hear the friendly calls of wildlife, now lurked aggressive creatures. The forest, once a keeper of secrets and ancient stories, felt overrun by wild and hostile beasts. The vivid scenes haunted the king. His heart raced with fear and sadness as he realised his people might face a fate too dreadful to comprehend. The vivid images tormented the king. His heart pounded with fear and sorrow as he realised that his people might be caught in a fate too terrible to imagine. The dream was more than a nightmare. It was a warning, a call to arms against an unknown threat that was seeping into every corner of life. When King awoke, trembling, he knew that this vision was not meant to be ignored. It was a sign that the balance of nature and spirit was in grave peril. Determined to understand the meaning behind his unsettling dream, he resolved to summon the village's wisest elders and learned men. He hoped that together they could unravel the mystery behind the dream and prevent the dark forces from taking hold. The seed of uncertainty had been planted, and from that moment, every heartbeat in village would echo with the tension of impending change. The following morning, with the taste of his unsettling dream still fresh in his mind, the king called for an urgent assembly. He sent messengers to every corner of the village, inviting the elders, the wise men, and the learned to the centre of the village. With hearts heavy yet hopeful, the people arrived, curious about the mysterious message their king carried. As the assembly began, the king recounted the disturbing images that had haunted his sleep. He spoke slowly and clearly of suffering, of animals abandoning the village, and of the strange, menacing mermaid that now dominated the river. His voice trembled with urgency and fear, yet it carried the strength of a leader determined to save his people. The elders listened intently, their eyes reflecting both the wisdom of years and a spark of concern. They exchanged glances, as if silently weighing the gravity of his words. However, an eerie silence soon took hold as the wise men, one by one, began to drift into a deep, unnatural sleep. It was as if the very act of recounting the ominous vision had cast a spell over them. The elders, typically alert and discerning, succumbed to a profound slumber, leaving the king in a state of confusion and desperation. Amid this unexpected occurrence, only a few remained awake, curious children whose innocent eyes shone with unspoken questions, and a mad man, known throughout the village for scavenging discarded food and muttering secrets to himself. Though often dismissed as a harmless eccentric, the madman's gaze was sharp, and his ears keen to every word. The king's distress grew as he realized that the very men he relied upon for guidance were rendered helpless by sleep. His voice, laden with both authority and sorrow, demanded that they awaken and decipher the meaning behind his dream. Yet, when the wise men finally stirred, the details of the vision had evaporated from their minds as if erased by the night. In their confusion, they offered only vague, half-remembered notions, leaving the king with more questions than answers. Realizing the gravity of the situation and the mystery that now enveloped his court, the king declared that he would give the wise men 3 days to return with a full interpretation of his dream. The reward for the correct revelation was no small matter. He promised that the one who uncovered the truth would become his trusted right-hand man, a position of honor and responsibility in guiding the fate of the village. The vibe in the village started to change in ways that were both subtle and concerning. What used to be a harmonious blend of hard work and nature's kindness was now hanging by a thread. The men, gripped by fear of the unknown, were hesitant to wander into the bush to hunt for wild game. They stemmed from a deep-rooted fear that had settled in after unsettling events at the royal hall. The fishermen were also caught in a web of inexplicable anxiety. The river, which had always been a source of food and happiness, seemed almost empty. The waters no longer swarmed with fish, and the soothing sound of the waves felt more like a ghostly hush. Instead of comfort, there was an unsettling quiet that hinted at nature's quiet rebellion against the broken bond with humanity. Amidst this growing tension, the madman, who had been the only ones to truly grasp the king's prophetic dream, once seen as a mere oddball, now stood out as an unexpected keeper of ancient knowledge. His weathered face, etched with the tales of forgotten times, revealed a profound understanding of the land's hidden truths. He felt that the looming disaster was more than just a bad dream. His heart, now tinged with a sense of duty, began to pulse with the call of adventure. He embarked on a journey into the wild, their path marked by uncertainty, and the faint hope of restoring the balance that had been disrupted. Every step he took was laden with the weight of responsibility and the future of the entire village. 2 of the elder wise men, Chief Nuru and Elder Biko, once they learned the madman went into the wild, they laughed, thinking, what can he even do? The 2 elders each believed that they held the key to unlocking the dream's secrets. Chief Nuru, known for his knowledge of the ancient rites and sacred symbols, argued that the dream was a warning from the ancestors, urging the villagers to reconnect with the old traditions. Elder Biko, on the other hand, maintained that the vision foretold a natural imbalance, a sign that the land was suffering from neglect and that a new way of living was necessary. As the madman ventured further into the forest, strange signs began to manifest: trees withering at their roots, animals watching him with unnerving stillness, and the river, which once flowed clear and strong, now sluggish and polluted. It was as if the very land itself was mourning a loss, a pain that went unnoticed by the people who had once lived in harmony with it. He came upon a clearing where the air shimmered with an eerie, supernatural energy. In the centre, the mermaid, from the king's vision, emerged from the river, her eyes not filled with malice but with sorrow. "You come seeking answers," she spoke, her voice soft yet commanding, "but you have already forgotten the question." The madman blinked in confusion, unsure of her meaning. "What do you mean? The balance between the people and the land is broken," she explained. "Your ancestors knew that harmony could only be maintained if the people lived as part of nature, not above it. Your king's vision reflects this imbalance. If no changes are made, there will be widespread famine and the villagers will perish." "Then how do we fix it?" he asked, feeling the urgency rise in his chest. "The answer lies within the village itself," she whispered. The king's dream was a warning, yes, but it also reflects the truth, the greed, the fear, and the unwillingness to change. The land has been ignored, the spirits have been forgotten, and now the consequences will be felt. Realization struck the madman like a thunderclap. The village had strayed too far from its roots, and only by confronting this truth could the cycle be stopped. After the eerie encounter with the mermaid, the madman returned to the village, burdened by the weight of the knowledge he now carried. The sky was painted in the golden hues of dusk as he walked back toward the familiar sights of his home, but nothing looked the same. The air felt still, like a breath held in anticipation. It was as if the land itself was waiting for something, a reckoning perhaps. The villagers, sensing his return, gathered in the central courtyard, where the king had called for an assembly to hear the final verdict from the elders. Chief Nuru and Elder Biko had returned from their deliberations, each still holding firm to their beliefs. Chief Nuru spoke with reverence of ancient rituals and the need to return to the old ways, while Elder Biko urged the villagers to embrace a new path, one that recognized the changing world around them. The madman stepped forward, and the crowd fell silent. His eyes were different now, clearer, more intense. His weathered face, once dismissed as the countenance of a fool, now held the wisdom of someone who had walked through the heart of the wild and returned with answers. "Your king's dream," the madman began. One of the elders stepped forward to dismiss him, but the king allowed him to continue. His voice carrying the weight of the vision he'd experienced was no mere nightmare. It was a warning, but it also reflects the truth of what we have ignored for too long. The villagers shifted uncomfortably, their curiosity piqued but uncertain. The river is empty, the forest is silent, and the animals no longer roam freely. We have taken more from the land than we have given back, and now the spirits are angry. The land is in pain. The dream you saw, my king, was not just of a future catastrophe. It was the result of our own neglect. The very imbalance you saw was born from our actions. The land has been exploited, the old ways abandoned and forgotten. And if no changes are made, we will all perish. A hushed murmur rippled through the crowd. The king, who had been holding his breath, stepped forward. But what can we do? How do we fix what has been broken? The madman's gaze hardened as he addressed the assembly. It is not a simple fix, Your Majesty. The answer is not in rituals or new ways alone. It lies in balance. We must restore the relationship between the land and the people. The ancestors understood this. But over time, we grew complacent, relying on what we took rather than what we gave. He paused, letting his words settle. We must return to the old ways, yes, he said, turning toward Chief Nuru. But we must also understand that we cannot go back. The land has changed, and we must change with it. We must learn to live in harmony, again, not as masters of the land, but as stewards. We must sacrifice what we hold dear, our fears, our pride, and our excess. We cannot continue to take in excess without giving back, because it will end in disaster. A silence fell over the village as the gravity of his words sank in. The elders exchanged uneasy glances, but there was no denying the truth in the madman's words. The king, feeling both anger and sorrow, turned to the madman. And how do we begin? How do we restore this balance? The madman smiled faintly. It begins with acknowledging the truth, Your Majesty. The journey you took in your dream was not just a vision, it was a call to action. It is up to us all to act now. The elders may hold wisdom in their rights, but they must open their eyes to the truth that things must change, and the people must be ready to sacrifice what is no longer serving us. The following days were marked by a tense atmosphere. The villagers, though unsettled, knew that they could not ignore the madman's words. But even as they debated what to do, nature continued its slow rebellion. The river was growing colder and more distant, the animals still not returning, and even the crops were beginning to wither despite the king's best efforts. Chief Nuru and Elder Biko, their once unshakable certainty beginning to waver, took the madman's words to heart. They realized that their endless debates over the old and new ways had kept them from seeing the truth that had been right in front of them all along. Balance. The king, finally seeing that the village's survival depended on more than just traditional rites or new ways of living, called for a council of the people. I will listen to the land, the king declared. I will listen to the spirits, and we will rebuild what we have broken, not with the strength of our hands alone, but with the strength of our hearts. In the following weeks, the village underwent a transformation. The people, led by the king and guided by the madman's insights, returned to the forest, the river and the fields, not with hands outstretched to take, but with hands ready to give. They replanted trees, cleaned the river, and offered sacrifices not of goods, but of pride and fear, acknowledging the mistakes they had made in taking more than they needed. The madman was the first to lead the villagers into the wild, showing them how to walk with the land, how to listen to its whispers, how to honour the animals and spirits once again. The villagers, now with hearts open, began to realise the value of what they had lost and the true cost of their neglect. The king, watching as his people transformed, understood the deeper meaning of the dream he had been given. The suffering he had seen in the vision had not been a punishment but a mirror, showing him the potential destruction caused by the ignorance of the people and the broken bond with the earth. It wasn't long before the river began to flow again. The animals returned to the forest, and the crops slowly started to thrive once more. But the villagers' most valuable change was the one that had occurred inside their hearts. They had learned the true meaning of respect, for the land, for each other, and for the balance that must always be maintained between them. And as for the madman, the villagers no longer saw him as a madman. They once called him mad because he lacked necessities and went through garbage for food. Now they realised it was because he had nothing. His once dismissed wisdom had proven to be the key to their survival. The king honoured him as a hero, saying a true hero goes above and beyond to make a positive impact on the lives of others. You have shown bravery and compassion and save our village, and the king appointed him as his trusted advisor, guiding not with knowledge of ancient rites or symbols, but with the deeper understanding of what it meant to live in harmony with the earth. The moral of the story spread far, and wide balance is key and must always be maintained. The village was saved not through magic or rituals, but by the community's willingness to listen, make sacrifices, and honour the old traditions in a modern context. Ultimately, the story shows that wisdom can come from the most surprising sources. It teaches us that true harmony isn't about control or ownership. It's about coexisting peacefully with nature and one another. It encourages us to be aware of the earth and the spirits that guide us, reminding us that everything is connected, and our strength lies in the balance we create with the world around us. We have come to the end of our story. We'd love to hear from you in the comment, and give that button a click and subscribe to our channel. Your support truly makes a difference and inspires us to create more fantastic stories. Until then, see you on the next one.